welcome to Fun Problems, the problems of fun. I'm Peter C. Hayward.
I'm AJ Brandon.
And today we are going to get married. Surprise! What?
Really?
Yeah,
Man,
I decided to shock you.
I wonder what my wife's going to say.
She will be delighted. She likes me a lot. It's going to be great. There's no downside here. Today we're doing a little mini-sode, which for us means it could be 20 seconds or 3 hours. There is no way of knowing. First, any follow-up?
Yes, but I forget what it is. So let me hastily check what I put into follow-up. Did I talk about Matthew Dunstan last time? I don't think I did.
I don't think you did, no.
So Matthew Dunstan had a really good video on how to design elegant games, which isn't exactly what we talked about recently with Childishly Simple. But, okay.
I think it's right, in general, isn't Matthew Dunstan great? And the answer is yes, Matthew Dunstan is great. But I feel like we could expound on that. In case people missed that episode, because you're halfway through the thought, do you want to quickly finish the...
So Matthew Dunstan had a really good video on elegance, and because Childishly Simple touched a fair bit on elegance, it wasn't the main thing of it. I thought it was interesting to watch that, and it's just a great video, really well done.
Amazing. Today's minisode is us really narrowing in on a very specific thing. So we talk a lot about how being a game designer is about building a bunch of tools and then knowing when to pull these tools out. And we say a lot to play as many games as you can, because playing lots and lots of games just gives you access to more tools. Today, I want to dive into a very specific tool that I don't think I've used on one of my games necessarily, but I see it in a lot of other people's games, and I'm like, there's an established solution to this, which is, not the solution, the problem is, sometimes you'll have a game where you play the whole game, then you score at the end. And the scoring can be completely opaque to people. I'm not talking about a game where you get victory points as you go and you add them up, or even where it's obvious you get victory points. An example of a very successful game that has this problem or feature or aspect or trope would be Concordia. I've only played Concordia once, and we got to the end and we scored, and Concordia is not a short game. It's 90 minutes, 60 to 90 minutes around there? Yeah. Maybe even up to 2 hours. At the end of Concordia, I am a fairly smart man. I have played games before. I scored so low because I just misunderstood the thing that I should be doing. So it's fine. I will play it again. I'm not berating the game. It's obviously a masterpiece in so many ways, but it was a frustrating first play experience to get to the end of a 90-minute game and be like, oh, I did it all wrong. Just every part of that. Are there any other games that spring to mind with this, or is this something that you see in prototypes as much as I do? Because I see this all the time in prototypes.
I see it in prototypes, and I also see it in published games. I didn't make any notes for this one beforehand, so I don't have any examples of published ones off the top of my head, but this absolutely is something that I see, and it's very frustrating to me, and I think that it's very closely related to just in general giving players feedback.
Yes.
If the score is very opaque, they don't get feedback from those early actions, and they don't understand what they're missing until the end, which is what happened to you, and it can be super frustrating.
Yeah. So this is under the broad category of feedback, which has two very distinct meanings in board games, but more specifically is that thing where the game relies on end game scoring and you just can't really comprehend it till you go through. Critter Kitchen actually probably suffers from this problem. I didn't have this tool when we designed Critter Kitchen, but a lot of people... I played when I was in Australia, my family, my two sisters and my son, and we all sat down and played a game of Critter Kitchen, and at the end, and my sister's boyfriend, at the end everyone was like, oh, I sure wish I'd known how that worked any time before the end of the game. So this is not me standing on high being like, I do this perfectly. But the thing that I have seen games do to solve this problem is to have sort of mini scoring halfway through, or even a third, then 2/3, something like that. So it just gives you a chance to grok, to fully comprehend how the scoring works. So Galaxy Trucker, for some reason this is my go-to example, even though it doesn't quite apply to Galaxy Trucker. Galaxy Trucker, you are very frantically, very quickly building a ship and then running the ship, and then the game ends. In the new version, the 2022 whatever, that's the whole game. In the old version, you do it 3 times. You do a tiny ship, then a bigger ship, then a huge ship. And this process of running the game and scoring, then running the game and scoring, then running the game and scoring, means that even less than a third of the way through, because the small ship is the fastest round, at the end of that small ship run, you're like, oh, I really should have had some engines. Or like, wow, he had a bunch of storage. I didn't have any storage, and I can see how much that paid off for him, etc., etc. So, and this is why I say this is a mini-sode, because this is this is basically the end of the thought from my perspective, is whatever your scoring is. Now, it doesn't have to be a full, like, halfway through scoring system that's worked just as much at the end of the game, because it's a very nice thing to have arc by just scoring as you go. But to use Concordia as an example, if there was some kind of half-game or one-third game trigger that scored, everyone's mid-game score would be really low because you just don't have that many cards or resources at that stage. But it would really concretely tell you, like, oh, my strategy is not scoring very high. Your strategy is scoring very high. Oh, I see how it works now, rather than having to wait till the end of the whole experience to be like, okay, I guess that was just a learning game, which is, which I think the market is much less tolerant of. You need to play a full learning game before you can play the game in the year of our Lord 2025.
It's also really important to know, like, this is very different for very different weights of games. If you have a love letter style game, a micro game that takes 5 or 10 minutes to play, it is acceptable to not have that early feedback in the rounds of the game. But I think if you think of the game in terms of minutes played versus anything else, then you can see, okay, for every 10 minutes of play that I have, I need to have some form of feedback to players. Something along those lines. You know what I mean? That'd be a nice. Yeah, you have a thought?
Oh no, I was going to say I think I mentioned this last time too. I shotgunned all of shotgunned. I very quickly drank all of Daniel.games last week. I went through the whole site from start to finish just to get that off my to-do list. And one thing he says is, if your game has like. One thing you can really do to improve your games is be like, what's the most fun part? Oh, the last part's the most fun? Cool. Make that the whole game. Oh, the first part's the most fun? Great. That's the whole game now. He said he had a game that had like 2 stages and everyone loved it. He just cut the second stage and new players didn't miss it. It was faster. It was just as fun. Like, if it's as fun at a shorter length, great. You've compressed the fun in a really good way, which is what they did with the new Galaxy Truckers. So, like, you're absolutely right. Like, if it's even a 15, 20, 30-minute game, you can probably get away with, like, one game. Oh, okay, now I know how that goes. Let's go again. Anything over, I want to say, like, 40 minutes for me, I'd be like, just give me some mid-game feedback. Give me something halfway through the game that lets me know if I'm even close to an appropriate path.
Yeah, and there's so many different ways that this can be done. And I think that the problem is they're also context dependent. Do you have a specific tool that you had in mind for dealing with this besides just like have the feedback, or do you have a way for someone who has a prototype right now they're hearing you say this and like, how do I adapt my end of game system to give me that feedback early? Any thoughts for that?
Yeah, so the tool is just what I said, which is have either a full scoring stage or a partial scoring stage. And again, I didn't make any notes because I'm a genius who doesn't make notes, and thus the podcast is worse for it. But there are lots of games where maybe you don't do a full score, but halfway through the game you do like score an aspect of it. I would also say that this is most relevant. I want to get back to your question, but before I lose the thought, this is most relevant where in a game so a lot of games you can tell when you're doing well, right? Like my city's getting builder. My city's getting builder. My city is getting bigger. That's obviously good in this city builder to have more city. If it turns out building your city is bad, that's when you really need something like this, because the feedback you're getting is contradictory to how you will actually score.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've got a few more examples, by the way, of games that run into this. Have you played Number 9 before?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
a good example.
For me, that's short enough that it doesn't bother me. Whenever I play that, I'm always prepared to play twice.
That's fair, and it does come in around the 20-minute mark. But for me, because all the game is scoring basically, it's so like demoralizing to be like, oh, I realize now that I wasted the entire 20 minutes and I feel like absolutely nothing to show for it. It's just such a feels bad that what I do when I was teaching the game back when I worked at the board game store is I would actually like put 3 tiles on to the board and just say, hey guys, now that I've explained the game, how many points is this worth? And that's one smart way that you can get the feedback across. Yeah. But that's much harder to do when you aren't there as a designer. So at the very least, clear examples in the rule book or iconography, ways to express it through the game itself, where it's like visually you can see the result of the thing that you did. Something like Blockus is an interesting example where that doesn't have scoring at the end. I mean, technically it has scoring at the end, but nobody plays with the scoring because it's stupid. But but with that one, at least you have the feedback of, oh, somebody moved really close into my area. That feels like violating, even though there isn't like scoring early on. That's something where you get the feedback very quickly of, oh, I see, I need to protect the area around myself. That feels like I need to protect it, which is very interesting. Yep, go ahead.
I'm just going back to Concordia, just because that's the example that I think really made me think of this. There's something to be said for asking yourself, and not a slight on Concordia, I think Concordia made the right choice, asking yourself, hey, if my scoring is this unintuitive, should this be the scoring? Or more accurately, why is this the scoring? So for some of those heavier games, the weird, unintuitive scoring is the puzzle, that is the draw, that's what people want from the game. You want to say to people, yeah, it obviously feels great and is really easy to do A, but I'm going to reward you for doing B, because that's like unintuitive can be good at times. It's like this weird puzzle. But it's always worth asking yourself. I played a prototype lately. I won't name whose it was, because I don't think they listen, but just in case. And at the end, I was like, man, so much of that game was fun. And then the scoring was just laborious and bogged it all down and made me really be like, I wish we'd scored halfway through, because like 8 players at the table, no one understood how the scoring worked until we scored at the end. And my intuitive solution, my immediate solution was to add a scoring stage halfway through. The more I reflect on it, the more I'm like, I just think that scoring was wrong for the game. And I think the designer started with that scoring in mind. I think he wanted to make a game with that scoring. But this is the dog and the leash thing that we've talked about before. Like, if you follow the way that the dog is going, yeah, it might not be what you originally envisioned, but you will find something interesting in that direction and probably have a more intuitive, fun time.
Mm-hmm. Good to know. Far Away is an interesting example, because that's, I think, again, similar to number 9 in that it's quick enough that you can play through it and, it's okay.
Yeah.
But the scoring
I always do exactly what you said with number 9. I always just lay out a set of random cards, flip them over and reveal. And that, I think, is a really good example of a game where the interesting scoring is what makes the game. If you were like, oh, this is unintuitive, let's just reverse it, there would be nothing there. Like, you wouldn't have a game anymore.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, yep. So in terms of ways that you can incorporate some of this feedback earlier, I've got a few examples here. Blood Rage is interesting in that it has 3 rounds to the game, and in each of those rounds, there's multiple battles, and battles are the primary way that you get points from the game, from various means, but through a battle one way or another. And because battles happen so frequently in the game, even if you weren't fully prepared or whatever, when the first battle triggers, it happens early enough that you're like, oh, okay, so this is how the battle goes. And if you had a misunderstanding, you've got so much time to course correct over the course of the game. Because the first battle of the game is the first of 20 that's going to happen over the course of the game. And so I think having both the rounds and the battles as micro ways to give you feedback are very well done. And there's a game called Almanac, which is a worker placement game where the worker placement changes every time.
It's like pages of a book, right?
Yeah, it's pages of a book, and on each page you have,
I believe.
Yep, you got it.
So I remember that because I had that idea 5 years ago, or 10 years ago now. Never did anything with it. It came out, and I was like, okay, good. Someone has done it.
I don't quite love the execution, but I do really like. I've never wanted to like a game more.
Yeah.
And I do like it. It is a perfectly good game. I just think it's a little too complex in a few areas. But if it was a little bit more streamlined, I think it could have been an all-timer family-weight game. But it does a great job with feedback in that, one, because everyone's interacting with the same minigame, if you misunderstand what's going on, someone's going to immediately see the thing that you're doing wrong and point out what's going wrong with it. And most of the ways that you get points in that one aren't at the end of the minigame that you're playing for that page. It's you get points as you go. And so again, you get those feedback hits of you are playing your worker wrong, or you're not getting points correctly, or you're not getting this resource correctly. And it's very quick to see what the mistakes are, which is so important for a game like this where every page has different rules. I was very impressed with how, even though some of them I think are too complicated, it makes it very quick to see when people are making mistakes. And because you can see what other people are doing, what other people are getting, again, it course corrects if you see someone get something like, oh, that's how I get to store more resources. I want to do that. There's also this element of resources having different value for like selling when you go from one page to another, and that's a little confusing to players. But again, as soon as you see someone do it in the first minigame, it's like, oh, okay, now I get how it goes, and then you're set up for the next ones. I think Colorado is an interesting example because it's a light game.
So much Colorado lately. I love it. my son and my girlfriend played that all throughout Australia. We had a great time.
Nice.
Played it at Bondi Beach. We played it at Sydney Harbour. We literally just played it like at all the big landmarks because we'd be touristing and we'd be like, okay, we need a break. Let's pull out a game. And it was either Skull, Trio, or Colorado. Those were the three that we just always had with us.
3 fine choices. So for Colorado, it's got the end of game scoring. But because you get the sets of them as you go, and you have a little bit of downtime as you deal out as you put the cards back between rounds and everything, naturally players will look at their board and be like, okay, so I've got this many points, this many points, this many points. And that's a great opportunity for players to say, actually, that's negative points because you've got a fourth one. I cannot tell you how many times I've played that with like my niece or nephew or someone who's newer to gaming. And during that slight bit of downtime where there's nothing in the game that's like forcing this or like putting pressure on players, but it gives players a moment to reflect on it and to double check and be like, okay, I'm doing pretty good. And you're like, actually, not so much.
Yeah, I think I want to go back to an earlier point, which is that this is really, really important when the scoring is unintuitive in any way. Because Colorado, I don't think anyone really is like, oh, obviously this is bad. For the first round or two, you do get there absolutely. Number 9 is an interesting example because I've found like a quarter of the players I teach to, the second you finish the rules, they're like, oh, I get it. That's really clever. And the other 75% need to see it. And I suspect the designer is in that 25%. But there's something to be said for making the game for the people who get it and not trying to make it for the people who don't. I think number 9 would be a worse game if halfway through you scored, just because it's so simple and elegant. But I also think they knew what they were making and they targeted that audience. Not that there's there's nothing wrong with not getting it immediately, but it is a game that everyone can get, and some people just intuit so quickly.
Yeah, and then one example that's kind of like doing the wrong thing in some ways is Tiny Towns. You've played that one, right?
Yeah.
So Tiny Towns only has scoring at the end, and I have played it before where people are like, oh, my empty spaces are negative points, and they forget that or they get confused on that, or where they think their building scores 3 points and forget that they have to feed the building. And I do think that it's hard to say I would change anything about Tiny Towns because Tiny Towns is so good.
Yeah.
But I do think that it could have benefited from trying to find ways to make those buildings score earlier or give you some way to get feedback of giving a player a moment to say, so this does this, right?
Well, especially because everyone has their own unique building too, so there's no overlap at all. You asked earlier what are some tools, and so I think I want to dive into Critter Kitchen a little bit because that is a game where it has this problem, if you even think of it as a problem and if you even think Critter Kitchen has it. But we were conscious of this in the development process and did actually do a lot of, now that we're talking about it, we did actually do a lot of stuff to sort of mitigate that. So one thing was that in Critter Kitchen, you only get about half your points. It varies based on what critics and carts and ingredients come out, but you get about half your points from endgame scoring and the rest you score as you go. So there is still definitely an element of oh, I didn't understand how that worked. But just making it not an all or nothing can make a huge difference. Mm-hmm. If endgame scoring is a third of your game or half your game, it's a third the problem or half the problem than it is if it's your entire game. I think Tiny Towns, that's something that Tiny Towns could have benefited from, would be having some kind of scoring that happened as you went instead of being so concentrated at the end. Another thing we did... So I've got to go into Critter Kitchen a little bit. As the game goes, you serve these challenges and you get stars for that. And at the end of the game, you serve a big critic meal and you get, like I said, about half your stars from that. And we found in early playtesting that people were undervaluing the critic meal. And part of it was that it just wasn't worth enough stars. It was like a 2/3, 1/3 split, which wasn't justifying how much... Thematically, it wasn't justified. It didn't justify how much of the game was that critic meal mechanically. And so we added one little aspect, which was... At the end of the game, you compare the 7 courses, like you add up your 7 courses, you score them, but then you also score each course. Whoever has the best of each course just gets a star. And it was just enough to push up the scoring, but more importantly made people be like, oh, I want big numbers for my final course. And that's the behavior we wanted. We literally were like, man, the best way to play cricket, and obviously it varies as all games do, there's no single path to victory, is to sort of save the very biggest numbers for the end and spend all the other numbers as you go. So literally just by saying like, hey, you get victory points if number big, people were like, number big? That sound good, me like victory point. And it shifted people a big way towards the preferred behavior.
Nice. Yeah, so just to close things out from my perspective here, I just want to reiterate how important it is to have feedback. So the point of feedback for players is you want
we need a different word for feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll think of that and do follow-up later. But the way that we're using feedback here is we want players to see the result of their decision as quickly as possible. And I think that's really important.
I think Seamus Young called it juice. One of my favorite bloggers. He died a few years back. But like... I can't remember if it was juice or something like that. Sorry, I interrupted to make half a point. You continue, I'm going to look it up.
Okay. Yeah, so you want players to see the result of their decision as quickly as possible. That's important in light games because people who aren't as strong at gaming are going to be playing those, and they need it. And you want that in heavy games because heavy games are, by their nature, complex and difficult to play. And so you want players to be able to see that in this 4-hour game, the result of their mistake as early as possible. In Twilight Imperium, you can only score 1 public objective each round, and it is critical, absolutely critical, that you are scoring one of those objectives every single round, at least after the first, because the first round, it can't be
every round that you can, you need to sacrifice a lot of stuff to get that.
Yeah, and so it does give you the feedback of, at the end of a round, oh, you didn't get the thing, but a round in TI is quite a lot of time.
Yeah. It's the length of a game of Concordia.
Yeah, so it's usually too late at that point. So just keep an eye on that. If players aren't getting feedback early enough, that could be a result as to why your game is inaccessible to people, and you know how much we love games to be accessible.
Especially in the modern market.
Yes.
AJ, I have a fun question.
Let's hear it.
So, I was thinking about this. What is your favorite mechanic, or what mechanic most interests you from a game show? It's a little bit board game related, but game show or like something like Taskmaster or something like that. Like, I'll go first because this is why I thought of it. TikTok has been giving me a lot of Pointless lately. Do you know what the show Pointless is?
No.
Do you know Family Feud?
Yes.
So, Family Feud, they interview 100 people, they write down all their answers, they ask the contestants those questions, you're trying to get the highest score you can. Pointless, literally identical, except you're trying to get the lowest score you can.
So you're the weirdest answer that nobody's ever thought of.
They always go with questions that have strictly correct answers. So one was countries with exactly 5 letters. So they polled 100 people, they asked them to name as many countries with exactly 5 letters as they could. And then you get points equal to the number of people who said it, and you're trying to get, it's golf scoring, you're trying to get the lowest score possible. If you give an answer that isn't on the list, so if I said, North Korea, cool, that's 100 points. So it's basically the same as picking an answer that everyone said. And if you get an answer that no one said but is still technically correct, you get 0 points, and that's pointless. That's why it's called Pointless. It's such a clever little mechanism. It just takes Family Feud and twists it, and it's just been living in my head for so long. I think that's such a clever adjustment to the formula, and now I'm always thinking like, oh, what is a 5-letter country that other people wouldn't think of? Like, it's I got a friend called Rohan. He was on the show La Brea. If you ever saw La Brea, he was one of the actors from that, and he loves Just One, and he hates Hive Mind because he hates trying to think how everyone else does, and he likes trying to be different from everyone else. So he would like Pointless 100 times more than Family Feud.
Interesting. I don't really watch many game shows. I don't know if there's a specific mechanic that ever really spoke to me too much.
Oh, I know one for you. I thought you might say it, but...
Oh, yeah? What's that?
I set you up. Taskmaster season... What was the one we just had? 19? 17? 19. There was one live task that you got completely besotted with.
Yeah, the blowing one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've already completed that game.
Oh, nice.
I wasn't sure if that was too specific, but yeah, I'll go with that one. So in that one, the mechanic was you had to blow these very light objects off of a table. So it could be feathers or stuff like that. And the twist is if you don't blow anything off, you're eliminated. So you have to blow hard enough to knock things off. But if you knock off the last thing, you are also eliminated. So you had to blow to get some number of things up. And of course, sometimes you want to be a jerk, right? And you want to remove most of the things to force somebody else to be the person out.
It's almost Dixit scoring.
Yeah, it's very clever. That's not how the board game version works, no, of course. But
I just remember you being so in love with that.
Yeah, that was a great task. Really
pub tip. Do you want to do yours? I see that you have one in here.
Do I?
Well, it has a typo, so I assumed it's yours.
that does make sense. Is it the...
Yeah, the one you've highlighted.
Yeah. So my tip is don't publicly complain about bad reviews on your games. It makes you look unprofessional and unable to take feedback. I'm curious if you think, if you would agree with this.
Oh, I completely agree. I don't interact with reviews at all.
Cool.
Sometimes if a YouTube video has like 6 likes, or 6 views, I'll leave a comment just so that they know that like someone saw it. But especially on BG, I just do not reply to reviews. And Jamie Stegmaier said, 5, 6, 8 years ago now that he used to be very active. He used to thank every reviewer. He used to post to them. Now he moved. He said that he was worried that gave people the impression that he was reading over their shoulder, and if they said something nice, he'd blacklist them. Nowadays, he claims not to read reviews at all. He says like his stated policy is, I just do not ever read reviews. For me, that's going too far. I want to know what people liked or didn't like. I learn a lot from the reviews of my game, especially the negative ones. Just like a lot of the stuff that I've learned about mismatched expectations or mechanics that I was like, oh, it's fine, and it comes out and I'm like, that wasn't fine. I should have pushed harder on that. That comes from reviews. That comes from people's feedback.
Right.
But I don't reply to reviews at all, and I definitely don't like. Oh, sometimes if like it's a career highlight quote, I'll post it on my Facebook. Like when Dan Throw of Space Biff reviews anything of mine, I will post that because he's been my favorite reviewer for over a decade now, and he's only just recently kind of started liking my game. So it's a real that's a real like career moment for me every time he reviews something of mine. But my general policy is I don't comment. I don't respond. Like the review isn't for me, you know?
Yeah. And I just think that whenever I see people, posting on Facebook forums and stuff, and they're like, oh, can you believe someone gave my game like 1 out of 10? That's so cruel. Why would someone do that? I never rate games below a 4 or like those types of things. I mean, sometimes I take a quick look and I'm like, well, you have a suspiciously high number of 10-star reviews, and some of them say that they haven't even played the game. I wonder how many of those are you getting your friends to rate it. So maybe don't complain about those. I've seen a lot of things where that kind of thing comes up, but I think just in general, whenever you are like publicly venting about people not liking your game, I just think it's a bad look. I
have moved away from social media generally. I very rarely post on social media. Nowadays, it's mostly just book reviews, very occasional photos. Instead, I've moved to private chats. So I have 17 private chats with my friends in different combinations. I don't have 17 friends, but I have different combinations, and like some are a little broader, some are a little more narrow. And I think that those are a much healthier way of like externally processing, which is such a big part of my process as a human, rather than going straight to Facebook. And nowadays, someone called me out on it 5 years ago. They said, like, Peter, your Facebook page looks like you're in pain. And I was like, I'm not in pain. What are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, you're just sharing every thought like for the mass approval. And I hadn't thought about it that way, but I think he was actually completely right. And now when I see other people's Facebook page and it's like gripes about their day or like bad reviews or whatever like that, I'm like, are you okay, man? Like find some friends, like this doesn't need to be on your digital footprint, which is not a thought I would have had even 5 years ago. But nowadays I'm really like, just not keep it bottled up inside. I'm not trying to say that, but like it doesn't need to be a post that the entire board game industry sees, or that everyone in the world sees, or that everyone you've ever met sees. It just I think it's a little crass now, which if you know my Facebook page, if even when we started this podcast, you'd be like, really, Peter? Yeah, I have completely gone 180 on this.
Yeah,
I
remember some of those old school posts.
Oh yeah. I was very just like every thought I had. I don't think it's healthy. I really don't. I will say that this particularly bugs me when it's a publisher complaining in like a publisher group, being like, what do you do when someone gives you an unfair review? And you're like, you're a professional. You're meant to be a professional. Like, you accept that it's part of the gig. Dice Tower goes in for this a lot, and I think Dice Tower, a lot of their reviews are not well thought out. I will now do the exact thing that we're complaining about. Tom Vassell in his Critter Kitchen review was like, and the 6-7 player game is a mess because you have to put all 3 chefs down each turn. I haven't played it, but I know it's going to be bad. He's wrong. That's literally not how the game works. I'm talking about this now, obviously, contradicting myself, but I didn't make a public Facebook post. I didn't like go on BGG and be like, hey, everyone, Tom Vassell's wrong. Next time I saw him, I was like, you got that wrong. He's like, the game probably still doesn't work. Ha ha ha. We had a good laugh about it. But like, it's just part of being a creative professional who puts your work out there. Some people are going to review badly. It's just a fact. Yeah. It doesn't need to have a crusade or.
On a related note, try not to put your self-worth into your game, and put even less self-worth into how other people perceive your game. If you like your game, that's awesome.
Put the least amount of self-worth into how Tom Vassell.
Be kind to yourself out there. Love yourself. Self-care, and you're great just the way you are, people.
And neuter your pets. AJ, how do you want to end this very special episode?
By saying goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. You can find us and our incredible Discord community in the show notes, or reach out to us privately at funproblemspodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed the podcast, please tell a friend.